Hello there. Let's go over the history of the shiny knife. This was the very first one I built in about 2010. It's just a piece of 1/4-inch frosted acrylic, and inside here are a coin cell battery and a blue LED. You would activate it just by squeezing the handle, and it would light up kind of like this. You can get an idea of what it looks like from the lights on this table here. But obviously very simple. I just built it with stuff I had laying around using just a Dremel and a power drill. And that was a rough and ugly job, but it was a fun thing to build. And a lot of the features translated into the future versions, so I'm glad I built it. The next version came much later, around 2019. This was actually supposed to be a machete at first. So I 3D printed this handle piece here. I built a switch into the grip, and you've got a triple LED array powered by a 9-volt battery inside there. And the design behind it, I wanted it to be full tang, so that means the blade comes all the way through the handle, which means you're grabbing the actual blade and not just the handle, because I didn't want there to be a weak point right here. However, I ended up making a weak point right here by having a cutout for the LEDs and for the battery, so it was very weak right here and ended up snapping pretty easily. And that's actually why I don't make long blades right now. I'd have to redesign it, and I'd have to redesign it without using a full tang blade. So it's something I want to do in the future, but I shelved this project pretty quickly and moved on to the next one. For version 3, I tried to make it smaller, but ultimately failed. I really went crazy with the features on this one. So it's got a LED strip right here, which avoids the full tang blade, even though I said I didn't want to do that. It's got an LED strip in there. It's powered by this 9-volt battery, which is heavy enough where when you swing it, it would move forward on this little carriage. You can hear it clicking the switch there. It's spring-loaded here and inside here. So it's cool. When you swung it, it would turn on, which works, but I ended up going with a more simple method for that in future builds. I'm going to take off this trigger guard. This was the main power switch right here. And so you'd either swing it and turn it on, or you can lock it on with this switch here. And this worked okay, but when I printed it out, it was much larger than I realized. And so I went back to the drawing board for the next version. Still kind of a cool piece, but evolutionary dead end. That brings us to the Mark IV shiny knife. So learning from the problems with this one, I tried to make it as absolutely small and thin as possible, and I brought back the full tang blade. So what I did, now this is the prototype, so it looks a lot jankier than the production versions did. But what I did was made a custom switch here where the wire from the homemade battery clip comes up into this little switch and makes connection right here. So when you push on the trigger, it would connect the circuit and the LEDs here would light up. And here's one of the blades that goes in there. So this one worked pretty well. The only problem is that it was laborious to make because I had to hand make those electronics. And I found ways to make them foolproof, but it required extra labor and testing and like custom fitting of solder globs. So it wasn't ideal, but I didn't really mind making them. But eventually I decided to change it and make the Mark V. For the Mark V update, I mostly kept the outside shape the same, with just a few aesthetic updates. And inside, the custom handmade electronics are replaced with off-the-shelf components. This will help in the long term with reliability. Even though I never had any reliability issues with this one, it just took a lot more work to get the solder just right to grab the battery and to have the contact be made in the trigger here. So the trade-off is that it's a little bit more expensive, and then the battery no longer fits inside just one side. It has to occupy the middle space a little bit too, so the blade is a slightly different shape in order to accommodate that. But that should be no problem at all. Works the same as the previous version, where you just push this switch in to turn the light on, push it in and lock it forward to lock it on. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching.